Alrighty, so first things first, we're going to practice a value scale in a range of browns. We're going to go from white to a medium brown to a dark brown, and I'm going to use the pastels that came in my oil pastel box. Actually has a light brown and a dark brown, and then I'm going to add a little black to one end and a little bit of white to the other. The big idea here is that you want to have a complete range of values, not a jump from dark to medium to light in stripes, but rather a smooth transition that I create by layering those pastels. I don't use my finger to rub out values or a rubbing tool so much as I just layer first lightly, and then I start layering on a little more and a little more till I get medium and dark ranges. And then I go back and forth really adjusting for light, medium, and dark until I have it just so. So I'm just going to fast forward my video a little bit so you can see me do that quickly. I spent probably 5 to 10 minutes really adjusting my values to get it just right. So now I'm going to start applying those values to my portrait. Looking at my photo reference as I go, I need to identify the light, medium, and dark areas. Then I'm going to use the medium brown from my pastel box, or I could start with the white even and start laying a ground of pastel over really the entire face. Now I'm going to go in with my darker brown, and I'm going to start very carefully coloring in the darker areas. Now some areas, like for example my lips, oftentimes students think that their entire lip is the same shade, but if you look in the photograph, your lips reflect back off in a nice bright white highlight or a hot spot. So you want to reserve those white areas. Now in some areas, I really think those shadows around my eyes might be a little heavy-handed, a little dark, but I'm going to start out maybe a little dark, and I can always go back in and lighten things up with my white or my medium. Oil pastel does not allow me to get a very sharp line, so you'll notice that with creating values, I'm not so much able to outline as much as I can map out an area and say this area is darker or this area is lighter. Refining edges is a little trickier. So I'm going to move around the portrait, trying to identify the darkest areas first in contrast to the lightest areas. And then I'll be able to go back in and sort of blend or soften those transitions so it's not so hard-edged. All right, now I'm going to speed up the pace a little bit as I go around darkening some of the darkest spots, really trying to edge out the contours of the face as well. You're going to take a little more time. All right, I'm going to slow it back down again, and I'm going to come back in with some white. I'm going to use the white to soften up some of those transitions between the dark and the medium. I'm also going to use the white to maybe sharpen up or reserve some of those hot spots, say my forehead or the tip of my nose. Now, with each one of you, you're going to look in your photograph and see what is the balance. On my photo, I have a lot more light areas than dark areas. Some students may have more dark areas than light areas. Be honest about what you see in your photograph so you get an accurate representation. Don't draw what you think should be there. In other words, draw what you observe, like a scientist observing and measuring the range of values from dark to light. All right, so here I go. Throughout the rest of the portrait, I'm really doing a lot of pushing and pulling. How light is light, how dark is dark. I might go a little too far one way or the other, and then I revise it. This is a lot of what art making is estimating, then putting your mark down, and then checking against the reference to see, is this really accurate? So using my photo all the while, I'm trying to really measure off of that how light is light, how dark is dark, back and forth I go. When I've really pretty well finished the value ranges for the entire face, the face should look somewhat three-dimensional, I can start going in with some black to really sharpen up the darkest shadows. Now here is my warning to you when using a black oil pastel. I always think the black gets away from me. A little black goes a long way, but you don't want black on your cheeks or all over your skin tones. It'll start to look gray. So I only use the black for the pupils, maybe the very corners of the mouth and the hairline. If any black does sort of smudge and get away from me, that is tricky because there is no eraser for oil pastel, but sometimes you can take a wooden tool like a popsicle stick or a paper clip and maybe scrape off some of the oil pastel that goes where it's not supposed to be. But really the secret to success is control your black and use it very judiciously, very little. And then you'll be able to add your local color. Local color also, you don't want to look like a clown. So a little goes a long way, a little orange to warm up the skin tones, maybe a little pink or red in the lips. If you have, color in your eyes or elsewhere in your portrait, you can start adding that now. And you should be just finishing up.